AI is taking over more and more things online, and it feels like it's replacing human connection in some ways.
Human connection is going to be a premium. I don't believe it's going away. I think it's going to get a lot better. Even though we're using these great tools, we still are going to evaluate each other on trust. And that's going to be even more important than ever with all this automation and avatars and AI agents working on our behalf.
How do we do it in the right way that actually meaningfully creates deeper connection between people?
There was a real full circle moment. My belief for the future is that AI is going to enlighten us in a way. It's going to release some of the load that we feel.
Open public internet is turning into an environment that you could be manipulated, fooled very easily.
We need to know who we can trust. The future of networking is AI accelerated, filtered by trust, and human approved, because no matter what, you can't take the human out of that equation.
Welcome, Nicole. Thank you for coming. Excited for our conversation. So the point, kind of the focus of the conversation, I want to stay around human connection, networking, future of human connection in the digital world, and what do we need to do to stay in our purpose, healthy, aligned, and full of meaning. And so somewhere around there, we'll explore different avenues. And so why don't you start by sharing your opinion about where is human connection going in the future, considering that AI is taking over more and more things online, and it feels like it's replacing human connection in some way. So how do you see the human connection happens in the future? Yeah.
Well, the good thing is I don't believe it's going away. I think it's going to get a lot better. And it's going to get a lot better because of all these incredible tools and the technology that's coming out. So for those that are freaking out that we're going to live in our van down by the river with our VR headsets on and not talk to anybody, maybe there's a few people that choose that route, but no, we're not going that direction. And I have a tagline, I guess I would say, is that the future of networking, and I use the word networking in terms of relationship building for professional advancement. Yeah. The future of networking is AI accelerated, filtered by trust, and human approved. And I'll explain that. It's AI accelerated because we're going to be supercharged in our networking and relationship building with all of these amazing AI tools that are already out and that are coming. Filtered by trust means that even though we're using these great tools, we still are going to evaluate each other on trust. And that's going to be even more important than ever with all this automation and avatars and AI agents working on our behalf. We still want to know, we're going to make a decision like, can we trust this individual or this company? Yeah. And then the last is human approved, because no matter what, you can't take the human out of that equation. And so ultimately, we are still going to approve the connections that we are making, the relationships that we're being built. So even though a tool might match us with someone and ping us when they find a match, when it finds a match, we're still going to have to approve that and go forward with it. So I'm really excited. I think it's just more efficient and exciting, and it's going to open doors just like how the internet opened our minds to things about everything underneath the sun, and how working from home allowed a lot of companies to hire talent all over the world.
For sure. So do you see us spending less or more time online?
Probably more. But that's because our world is online now. Yeah. So I don't mean more in terms of like, is a zero-sum game where we're going to be online and we're not going to have connection, but we're going to be increasingly more and more plugged in. And it's not a choice. It's just that technology is going to be woven into every part of our lives. But the benefit of that is that human connection is going to be a premium. Yeah. It is what we are going to prize more than ever. And we're going to be very intentional with that. Yeah. So, going in person is going to show what you care about, what you believe in. It's going to send a signal to other people. And you're going to want to make the most of that time in the real world. The real world, Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb, just said this on the Decoder podcast, that the real world is a magical place. And it's going to be even more so. And people are going to curate these unique experiences in the real world. Yeah.
The way I see it, and that question I haven't really given an answer, but now it kind of came to me. So I asked you, are we going to be spending more time online? And you said yes. And I think we're going to be spending more time in the physical world also. As we're getting a new type of tech that is much more like a AR, MR type technology, where we are interacting with the digital medium, but we don't have to be fully in it. We can still be in the physical environment present, and information is only being delivered in moments when it really is needed. In fact, I see the most advanced technology is the one that's least noticeable, where it is somewhere in the background. We don't have to even have like big headsets or let's say if we look into the future, 50 or 100 years into the future, the humans of that time will look more primitive in the way that they won't have any like gadgets around them. They will just look, more tribal, but at the same time, they will be a very sophisticated technological beings that have, in a way, like menus in their eyes or whatever. I mean, menus is kind of a primitive way of expressing it. I don't think it's going to be menus per se, but just to kind of iterate this idea that it's a merger of the physical world with the digital world, overlaying one over the other, with the ultimate goal of bringing you more to the present moment.
That's the singularity, isn't it? I mean, that's when we merge with technology. And you said that so beautifully. I mean, we all know what happened when Google Glass came out. It was just way before its time. And I do love this feature that you envision, which is that technology is not this gadget that we're carrying around. It's merged with us. And actually, I was at the FII conference in Miami, and Masayoshi Son was speaking, and he was saying that his daughter asked him, Dad, I have kids now, maybe like 4 or 5 or something. And she said, how should they use AI? How should they use technology?
Yeah.
And he said they shouldn't choose to use it. They should live with it. They should breathe with it. And I understood what he was saying, which is that just let it be a part of you. And of course, there's some real things as a parent. He's like, okay, let's talk privacy here. Let's talk about safety. But what he meant was like, it's just we're merging. We're becoming one. But I like your vision of it, which is that it's accentuating our experience versus dominating our experience.
In fact, I think it should really be focused on giving you more awareness of your present moment. I had this once, so I was at some point like doing yoga in front of the mirror, and it was like, wouldn't that be amazing if I could see all of the organs and like muscles inside as I'm looking at myself? It's instead of like me closing my eyes and visualizing, let's say when I'm breathing, how the air is going in or out, or like, let's say envisioning my chakras or energy centers. What if it's a real physical, like you can actually see it with your eyes? I feel like there's value in that. It brings you even deeper into that present moment of grounding you into yourself.
It allows us to be more human, if that's what I hear you saying, which is that it takes away all of the other things and just kind of comes in when we need it, and it's working in the background. It kind of reminds me of this example. People were saying when Excel came out, it didn't get rid of accountants. It just freed up accountants to do more visionary thinking versus spending a lot of their time on recurring calculations.
For sure.
And so I was thinking about that. If you have all of these other things working while you're doing yoga, can you truly just enjoy the yoga, knowing that you have technology that's tracking everything? I can't wait for like the nanobots that are in our blood, training our blood, and it's like telling us all of our levels of everything, hydration and vitamins, and bring it.
Right. So do you see a future in which this type of tech is taking care of your health, where maybe you don't need to be as aware of, let's say, some people are against the health trackers because they say, that outsources my ability to be present in my body. How do you see that?
That's interesting. And it's funny. I took my Whoop watch off before this recording just because, but people always say take your name badge off and your things for your interviews. But I wear it all the time.
Yeah.
You can still see the indent on my wrist.
Yeah.
And I will say this. I think everyone needs to find what they're comfortable with. However, I've always been a healthy person. Active, nutrition, that's important to me. What I loved about the Whoop was that it taught me things that I wasn't that aware of. Sleep, for example.
Yeah.
I've always been a great sleeper, but the first thing that happens when I'm very busy or a client deadline or something is you stay up late.
Yeah.
And I never realized how detrimental that was. And so for me, the Whoop was an amazing reminder. It's almost like a coach. And it would say, even on a night that I maybe just lost like an hour of sleep, I see how detrimental that is for your recovery the next day, your score from the day before. And even things like if you have a glass of wine with dinner, how bad that is for your score. And I think for me, it really opened my eyes to ways that I could go from good to great. Now, I will say that I have friends that I've mentioned this tracker to, and they will say, oh my gosh, I already have anxiety. I don't need something that makes me nervous. I understand that, and I respect that.
Yeah.
I think for most amount of people, they will learn a lot. I'm not spending hours a day tracking my every move, freaking out about it. For me, it gave me a very general awareness of ways that I can improve, and I'm all for it.
I think maybe there's a similarity to the relationship with AI, having AI that can give you so much additional information about whatever world, whatever questions you might have. Some people might be overwhelmed by this superpower, but the majority of people will probably benefit from it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like having a coach, and
Yeah. So you broke down. So, the human connection and networking. I wanted to find the intersection. So, can you define the two for me? And then I want to understand in what way networking is not connecting; it's more transactional. So, So let's.
Thanks for asking, because I purposely chose the word networking because it's a trigger word.
Yeah.
People hear networking and they think, oh, great, it's an event that I have to go to and wear a name badge, and it's awkward, and people are walking up to you and asking you what you do point blank. It's like as intrusive as saying, hi, how much do you weigh? Hi, what do you do? It's very uncomfortable. So I purposely chose networking because I want to show people that and the thing is anybody who's running a business or has a career, they want to network. And that's the thing, is that people want to get ahead in their career. They want their business to move forward. And we all know that the biggest leaps in your career or business often comes from someone you know, opening that door for you, getting you that job interview, or that game-changing partnership or client that, really exponentially grows business. Or you source a new deal, and it's because somebody on your team had a friend that worked at another company, right? And it's like, so we all know that, but there's still this elusiveness of how do you network and how do you do it correctly? Or correctly is not the right word, I'm sorry. How do you do it authentically and effectively that doesn't make you feel slimy or other people? So that's why I chose networking. It's building relationships for professional gain at some point. Human connection, I say, is us connecting, and it involves things like community building, and you're great at this, right? Like sensing emotional intelligence. So I say human connection because there's a lot of companies that I advise for that they are building technology for human connection in some sense. So that's the difference between the two.
Let's maybe go into the human connection and technology. You said some of your clients are building technology to enhance human connection. We have some examples where technology, with the intention of building more human connection, like social media platforms, in hindsight, we now recognize that it actually pulled us apart in many ways. So how do we do it in the right way that actually meaningfully creates deeper connection between people?
There was a real full circle moment. I mentioned Brian Chesky, founder and CEO of Airbnb earlier. He was just on the Decoder podcast, and he was explaining the history of social networking. And in the beginning, the social network was for us to build friends and network with each other. And then it turned into social media where your friends became your followers, and it became very performative. And now there's this gap where we want to connect with people, but social media doesn't feel like the place to do it. It feels very performative. And so now people are wanting to connect, and the place that they're doing it is in person and building community. So I found that very funny in a way, that it's just a real full circle moment that technology is no longer serving us what we have now. And so people are saying, I'm done with this platform. I'm just going to go out in the real world and enjoy. And actually there's a lot of research and I think it was Tinder or Bumble. Gen Z is not using dating apps. They are not the way that millennials are. For them, the idea of using a dating app to meet a romantic partner is just not, I don't know if it's not cool or whatever. And so I was just listening. I think it was the CEO of Bumble.
Interesting.
And they were saying that they built out a new feature where it's group dating because that's more appealing to Gen Z, and it's less intimidating. And so they are changing their technology to match the social culture of Gen Z. And so I thought that was really interesting. And so I think technology is going to adapt to obviously different generations.
Yeah.
But what the desires are for technology. Now, technology has been around for a long time now. And every generation thereafter is going to grow up with it. And so it's going to keep changing on what our needs are. It's going to support us in the way that we want at that time.
And from your experience, what you've been the value that you've been delivering to your clients, what kind of problems do you help them solve? Yeah.
So if you think about you're creating a program, you're creating a script, you have to write it out. You have to teach it what it's matching on, so pattern matching. And so, for example, for networking, let's say you're building the next LinkedIn, or you're building an app that is going to help people network. You are an incredible photographer, podcast producer. So, of course, you want to find clients that can use your services. So you might have an ICP, a specific demographic that you know usually needs headshots or wants to have a podcast. And so that's easy. That we talked about this earlier. That's an obvious connection. So they can program their technology to match based on your needs. And then there's other more still very obvious, like, okay, what industries maybe you're so used to working with, media or, you know, like any specific industry. But what happens is as you go more and more detailed or you go farther out, you also miss out on other things. So I know you're Belarusian. They're probably not coding for, is he Belarusian and what's their background? Maybe they are, but if they're not, I mean, even if you might meet someone at an event and they're Belarusian and you might end up talking for 15 minutes. And you don't even know what they do professionally. But after that 15 minutes, you actually now have this deeper relationship that's been accelerated by this common connection. So their technology might overlook that thing that just leapfrogged you ahead in your relationship with that person. And maybe at the end of that 15 minutes, you find out that that person is a corporate executive and they find out that you do headshots. Wow. So I work with companies to teach them all of the things that they might be overlooking in terms of what brings people together. What are some reasons that people open up to other people? Another example is sometimes your past history is an easy way for you to open up to someone else. Somebody might be in technology for 15 years, but their first 6 years of their career, they were in banking or they were in advertising. And a lot of times people really love opening up about their past or being able to help in a way that doesn't feel like, oh, this person is like trying to sell me, and that's an easy way. And a lot of times people don't put emphasis on that because they're only emphasizing what that person wants in the here and now. So and then there's cultural differences, there's likability, there's introverts versus extroverts. There's so many things that you could potentially program for. So I advise them based on what their objective is.
Do you see a future in which there is AI in between? So AI facilitates connections. So let's say AI knows so much about both sides, and it says, "Oh, you guys should connect on these points." Like, and then people go.
I mean, it's already there's tools being built right now that I'm working with. It's basically just going to ping you when there's a match. So it might ask you when you start, ask you a few questions, feel very conversational. There's already a few tools that are out there now, but I know there's new ones coming that are even more in-depth, and you have a few conversations with it. And it's not going to be like, hey, upload your resume, or hey, give me your LinkedIn profile, because it's not going to be specialized if it does it. Anybody can really do it. It's going to ask you, you're going to have a conversation with it, and you might not even realize that they might be asking questions that you wouldn't think can lead to how you're going to be matched. And then you go back to your work, and an hour later or a day later, you get a ping that says, this person might be a good match. But then that's why I said in the beginning is that it's still going to be human approved. And you're probably going to do what people do with dating apps is, even though they don't see that person's like more than just their name and their photo, people usually go and, at least what I know from my girlfriends when they're on dating apps, if they start having a good conversation, they immediately go and search that person online, and within seconds they can find their social media profile,
of course,
and give an extra layer of evaluation.
Or a protection. Or
True. I mean, definitely recommend that, but also for curiosity. So for example, the newsletter software Beehive, the guy, Tyler Dink, I remember his name because I'll explain why. He was also with Morning Brew and helped to scale them and has a really great newsletter himself. And I noticed one time he said, hey, I rolled out, and he puts out so much thought leadership on how to scale your newsletter following and all these, building a high growth startup. So he's produced a lot of content. And then one time in their newsletter, I noticed that he announced that he has a bot. He calls it the Dink bot. That's his last name, Dink. And I said, well, this is interesting. I've seen these before, but what I noted right away is that it uses my voice and you can text it or call it in addition to typing, if you're on your computer.
Okay.
So I said, well, that's interesting. So I went to it and he explained, like, it's trained on everything I've ever produced, from social media to podcasts I've been on to even it trained on some of the company's support manuals. So you can ask this. So I went on and I was poking around and first and foremost, I asked, like, why did you create this? And it was like, so that I can, share my knowledge more easily. And, and then I said, okay, well, let me try the voice thing. And so I could literally call the bot and have a conversation with it. And it has his voice and everything.
Was it pretty organic?
The one thing is I've never heard his voice before, but it didn't sound robotic. It was very nice. It was very well done. It's Delphi.ai. But what was so interesting is, and I probably spent 3 minutes, 4 minutes using it, poking around. And I was about to then close out and go do something else. Yeah. And I found myself wanting to know, who is this guy? Like, yeah. It was so weird. So what I did is I typed it in an Instagram and I found his profile. Yeah. And I went through his profile and I spent probably 5 minutes on his Instagram profile. I've never done this. Like, I don't care to do this with people.
I don't know if
but it was this weird thing where I felt like I was engaging with this person's likeness, digital twin. Right. And I felt very compelled to understand who is the real human now. So I thought, okay, two things. One, it's a great ploy if you put out a bot to get people to actually go to your profile and figure out who is this person and match and see how close they were. Yeah. But then the other one was it showed me that it's going to be more important than ever to be credible. Because what if you create this avatar? I mean, we all hear these stories of someone going on a date and the person's picture was like clearly 15 years ago and, 20 pounds less. Yeah. So what happens these days when you create these avatars and your whole persona online is one thing, and then in real life, you're completely different.
For sure, yeah.
And maybe people want that. Maybe people don't. And so I think that's the big question that we're going to be asking ourselves with all of our avatars that we can create. There's a very long story, but it's
totally, yeah. So, do you have solutions for that type of future?
Well, one, I've been testing out a few different things. I think the bot that guy had, I'm totally up for that because I have so much thought leadership that I've put out there and things that I want to share. And for me, if I can be efficient where anybody can use it versus, I love having one-to-one calls, but I have to keep them to a minimum, only a few slots a week because it takes up time. And, so if I can scale my expertise, my knowledge, I'd love that. If I can give value to as many people unlimited, sure. What I'm not ready for, me personally, is to have an avatar. And I asked myself why. One, I don't think the technology is 100% perfect yet. And so I putzed around with one and like on the bad end, it was comical. Like my eyes looked crazy. My mouth, it was weird. And that was really freaking me out. But for the one that was like somewhat decent, I watched it. If I did it for 5 seconds, I could probably fool someone. But what was interesting is if you do for longer, you miss out on certain nuances. I laugh a lot. I'm very, energetic.
For sure.
You miss out on that because it's trained on this just like very like, it's like routine. It's almost like your smile was on a circuit and it was like that.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the third one is headshots, these AI generated headshots. The outfits they give you, I'm not huge into fashion. I have such respect for people who are like just top-notch fashion. Yeah. I can dress myself, but it's not like my top priority in the morning. Sure. It's like always focus on the top fashion. But what I noticed with some of the AI headshots that I've tried is like, I saw it and I was like, I would never wear that box. Yeah. I wouldn't wear that color. I wouldn't wear that style. And even though the face was great, it turned out well, I would use the face. Yeah. What I realized is, let's say one day I'm just like, oh, I'm busy and I just want to use that image. Then what am I saying out in the world? First impressions do matter. So if I'm wearing that blouse that I would never wear, and it does represent in my mind a persona of a person that's different from me,
Yeah.
then I have to be careful about that. People are going to perceive me in different ways. And so I'm not ready for that.
For sure. And I also think with the self-confidence, if you know that what's out there, it's a fake version of you, or like synthesized version, it's not a real thing. It shows like an altered version of you, and that looks better than you. You actually don't have as much confidence in yourself. Like when I work with people and I take great headshots of them, I see that gives them more confidence, because they know they were here in the studio. We took a real headshot. It was not like a fake, like a AI generated one.
Yeah.
And that really gives people confidence of themselves.
That's beautiful.
And even also actually speaking like this through the mirror, when people are, if they're uncomfortable on camera, but in this format, they feel actually very comfortable because they don't see any camera. They just see another human. And then I show them the footage, and some of them have cried because they've never seen themselves so natural, authentic. And it gives them, again, confidence of that they actually could look great on camera. Because oftentimes when somebody's pointing a camera at them, they cringe, they feel uncomfortable, and they don't like that version of themselves. And they think that that's what they always look like. But once you capture them in the most natural, authentic state, that actually opens them up and give them confidence.
That's why I recommend you for anybody who wants to put together a podcast or sort of video, some sort of video production or headshots. That's why.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. That wasn't the purpose of the yeah.
I know. But...
So let's dive deeper into networking. How many years have you spent loosely in this whole domain of, learning about the best practices, how to do it right, doing it? So tell me more.
My entire career.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds cheesy to say that, but no joke, my entire career. I was, in my early 20s, I'd be at the bar talking with people. My friends would be like, why are you always having these deep conversations? We're at a bar, we're at happy hour. And I was like, I just really enjoy getting to know what people do and not what people do, what people like to do. What do they love? It's exciting to uncover things about people. But that also helped me to make great connections very early on in my career. And so I've never thought about networking as my superpower only until the past few years. And the reason is I've always been this person that I am. In my early 20s, people used to joke, can I just hire you to go network for me? And I used to laugh it off and feel embarrassed because I'd be like, oh, I'm a good networker. It seems cheesy and I'm very smart. Why? I want to be known for other things. And so I'd really shrug it off. But what I realized is I've had 3 companies prior to this, and I've always been this person through those 3 companies. And that's why those companies were successful, because I was out there in the world making connections that turned our sales strategy. I mean, we had inbound leads. People were coming to us. And those game-changing opportunities came to me through my relationships. And so I've learned a lot about being this person in those companies and seeing the power of what networking can do. Now, look, if you are a super high-growth technology company and you need to get your software in the hands of as many people, I'm not saying don't have a sales team. But what I'm saying is you should do 2 things concurrently. You should have the sales team, business development team, and partnerships team. But I absolutely recommend that your SVP level and above is networking and has a strategy to do so, because that brings in other opportunities. Because 2 executives that can have breakfast or lunch together and get to know each other and strike a deal, a multi-million, multi-hundred million, $1 billion deal, it's not going to happen from a sales representative. And so networking is so key in that regard. And I've seen that from, leading a startup through to a, global technology company.
Yeah. And so what is the right way of networking?
First, it's mindset. It's to make sure that it's okay to have a goal. Okay. It's okay to say, I want to network to move my career forward, to move my business forward. That's okay. But it's not okay to look at people like pawns on a chessboard and only treat them as transactional. And the way to do that is by always providing unique value to those people and giving more than you take. And these things are all things we've all heard about, but I really mean that if I go to an event, I would rather talk to 2 or 3 people and have 5-10 minute conversations than meet 10 people on a quick basis, or, God forbid in the days, where people were giving out business cards, people would come up and say, I do have a time to talk with you, but here's my business card. And I used to think, why in the hell would I just go home and say, oh, here's this person I know nothing about. Let me call him or her. Or furthermore, let me purchase something from them. It's a joke.
Maybe the idea is it's better than completely not know, like you haven't even been in the physical proximity with them, but it's still like...
It's like if you're walking down the street and a business card floats and falls on your shoulder.
Right.
You're definitely not going to call them and do business with that person. So the biggest thing is being human and providing value. And so, for example, going to an event, you have a conversation with someone 5-10 minutes and don't immediately disqualify them by, well, first, don't do the thing that most people do, which is like, hi, I'm Kirill. What do you do? So what do you do? It's like, might as well tell them, hey, what do you look like underneath that shirt? Instead, what I love to ask people is, oh, Kirill, so nice to meet you. What do you love to do?
Yeah.
And so often people, they stutter, they because what they thought they were going to hear is, what do you do? And they have their speech rehearsed.
Yeah.
And when they hear, what do you do?
Yeah.
I see their face change. Oh, and they relax. Oh, I love spending time with my kids.
Yeah.
Oh, I love a good glass of wine and traveling. And then it's like, okay, wow. And they just like immediately relax and they ask me or they start, then you say, I keep asking questions. Oh, how long have you been doing that hobby? Where did you learn that? And it's like, and then what happens, another trick I do is I ask questions and question, not interrogating them, but just asking questions. And finally they go, enough about me. Tell me about you.
Right.
And then I don't go into my speech about what I do.
Yeah.
I immediately talk about myself as a human.
Yes.
And let's say that conversation gets cut short right there because you're at a conference and the next speaker's about to go on, or, I don't know, something they have to go. They usually, even if you haven't talked about work, because people go, oh crap, we haven't talked, let me just word vomit my pitch.
Yeah.
What they typically do is, it's been so great talking to you, Kirill.
Yeah.
Let's stay connected. And I'll say, great, let's quickly connect on LinkedIn or I'll get your email. Yeah. And then that's the big thing, is just keeping that relationship and don't succumb to the temptation of just pitching them right there, because that can ruin all the progress you've made. The key is that networking is a long-term, recurring relationship. And so what I would typically do if I met that person and I go to LinkedIn and I find out that they're a potential client, I'll reach out to them and say, I had such a great conversation. Here are a few things that we talked about. Let's say we talked about, let's say wake surfing or something like that. I'll say, here are my favorite places to go wake surfing in Miami. Yeah. By the way, it would be great to to continue our conversation. Let's grab a coffee.
Yeah.
And on that coffee, again, relationship building. And then maybe at the end of that coffee is when you start talking about your work stuff, but it doesn't lead with that. So I would even say, it takes multiple times to build a relationship that might bear fruit.
And how do you balance the strategic approach to, let's say, oh, I got to talk to this person because they have certain type of resources or networks or whatever that I need, versus I want to be human, I want to express my curiosity. How do you find that balance?
A good way is to create something that attracts those people to you, because sometimes it's hard, and people might hear this and say, well, I don't have time to do all of that. Yeah. But I'm also not saying to do that with every single person you meet. And so there is an aspect of, you have a great conversation with someone, definitely connect with them somehow on LinkedIn, or, mentally note where their company was, and then do a little digging. That's okay. We live in a technological world. We all do it. Find out a little more and see if that's, and if it's important, invest in that. But a different approach you can do is to create something like a small community or a meetup that you can have those people self-select into. So if you know that your demographic likes a certain thing or is a certain person, you can create something that those people would want to participate in. And it doesn't always have to be professional. It can be, we were talking about this earlier, an executive dad's meetup, where the only thing that's professional is that it's an executive dad and you're inviting executives, but everything else is about talking about parenting in the modern world and, stuff like that. So I think creating that's something I always advise, because people don't think about that. And they think that it always has to be this like very hardline, one-to-one kind of search approach.
I wanted to touch on the topic of like AI is replacing. Oh, so it's about collaboration topic, and so there's the whole idea that in the future we'll have $1 billion company run by just one entrepreneur. So it kind of removes the need for collaboration, for networking. Like if you can do it all on your own with the help of the AI, it feels like that is diminishing your need for connection to other humans. So how do you see that?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think business is still going to get done human to human. I mean, somebody still has to choose to buy. Someone still has to train their AI agent to go and buy something. I'm all for the $1 billion one person company, but that company is still selling to all these other people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just don't think that that's going to happen. I mean, no matter what, people have to train it. And so, and I think people are going to, okay, let me take a step back. I think that when humans are pushed too far in one direction, we come back.
Yeah.
And we already see that there's people leaving social media. We see Gen Z is not responding to social media in the way that we do. People are pushing back on the food system, on the healthcare system. And I think we have gone too far in one direction, and people are saying, all right, I want, mindfulness is something that you and I talk about a lot. And it's like, what's mindfulness? Well, when I come home, mindfulness to me is putting my phone in another room and being present with my family. And so I believe that as we go further and further into technology being fully immersive, that we are going to be more about, okay, how can I be uniquely human?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think again, back to the analogy of the $1 billion company, the only way to achieve that by being one entrepreneur is to build your own community, have deeper connections to, in some way, 1 billion people, being able to influence them in even a small way, but noticeable way. That's the only path to making it a $1 billion company. The distribution is becoming more and more important. With the more noise we get out there, the more important it would be to have your tighter community of people who trust you, people who know you, and those are the ones that are going to be putting the dollars behind what you offer.
Yeah, to me that brings up the factor of trust, and I think the underlying factor in the next few years for all of these companies with all this AI rushing to the market, it's going to be trust, because we're automating everything away. We're having agents do work on our behalf. We're creating avatars. We are going to quickly say, okay, with all this stuff out there, what can I trust? The other day, my sister sent me this Instagram reel about this. It was like this woman doctor giving advice on like how to make these smoothies for better skin. And I watched it, and
You don't need it, by the way.
See?
Yeah.
Oh.
We don't see it.
Great lighting in here.
Yeah.
I watched it, and I swear immediately I was like, something is really weird, because it was the woman, the account holder in the bottom right, and the video itself was showing, how to make these smoothies. Oh, and I had scrolled to the next one, and I noticed that like every single video was the same format. It was the woman's, but the woman was wearing the same clothes. Yeah. And it looked like she was walking down a street.
Yeah, AI generated avatar.
Immediately, within like 3 reels. And I said, oh my, and I got really upset for a second, because I realized my sister, she's not in technology. Yeah. Is sitting there reading, and I mean, the smoothie seemed legit. Yeah. But I was like, this could be completely fake. Yeah. And then, and then here we are. And also, I felt duped.
Totally, 100%.
And I was, what the heck? And when I realized the trust factor is like, okay, I'm not going to take recommendation. And by the way, the woman said she was a doctor. So that also pissed me off. Yeah. So I was like, we need to know who we can trust. And I absolutely believe that's something I talk about a lot in my future of networking forecast, is that trust is going to be the number one thing. Yeah. And it's going to be in a few years. I don't think it's going to come right away, because what's going to happen, we're going to have all these AI tools come to the market. People are going to use it, and then we're going to be like, where did my data go? Who's behind this? I mean, there was that example of this guy who worked at Disney, and he downloaded an AI app that he was talking about. Like, he was in Discord. He was an engineer, so he was trying different things, but he downloaded his personal computer, and he wanted to use it with his kids. And the hackers found out he worked at Disney, and they literally got into Disney's system. And then they tried to blackmail him. There's this incredible Wall Street Journal deep dive into it. Ultimately, when he didn't pay them, they basically implanted stuff on his computer, and Disney fired him, and it was a really bad story. And that was terrifying, because what I realized, and when I test out some of these apps, is it's asking me to put my voice in there, and I'm putting my likeness. And in one of them, I was reading a script, and it said the passcode is 547, and it was but it was Synthesia. I mean, it was in the script.
Really?
Yeah. And I started reading it, and I was like, why the heck are they asking me?
Yeah.
But what I realized is they probably, because it's for training and development, and maybe it's a boss, but I was like, am I being punked right now? Are they like, what is going on?
That's weird.
And I got really freaked out.
Yeah, that is really strange. I've trained, like, I've played around with tools like that, but they typically would give me like some poem to read.
Poem, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
But this one, towards the end of it, was doing that. And I was like, yeah, it freaked me out.
Yeah, that's weird.
So anyways, I canceled that subscription, asked them to delete my account, but I was like, is it too late? You know, I literally read a minute of it, and they have my voice saying that. So trust,
recently I got this kind of like a vision about the future and agents that represents us, and an analogy was a highway. So it's very dangerous for us humans to walk on the highway, because there are cars flying by, and you're going to get killed without properly be like contained in another vehicle that also knows how to move fast. And that's, I think, what a digital domain is turning into. Open public internet is turning into an environment that you could be manipulated, an environment that you could be fooled very easily, especially now that AI is getting so good at generating those very visually like realistic imagery. And so I think the future is which all of us have our own agents. We don't go kind of like naked into the internet ourselves with our eyes and our hands and our bodies in a way. Well, we have a filter that's acting on our behalf, knows about our goals, our priorities, and it's doing pre-screening of everything that comes in. Somebody has to build this a tool like that. I think everyone would greatly benefit from it. For example, like even like social media, you know the stuff that would serve you greatly, and you kind of maybe consciously a little bit trying to train the algorithm by liking the videos that are good for you, but it still keeps serving you once in a while, like because they see where you're paying attention to, and so that part still is present. I would love to have it only stuff that serves me. Everything else has been filtered by my AI and not show me any of the garbage stuff that's not serving me.
Yeah. I would love that world.
Yeah. So I think that's a possible future, to have an agent by your side, maybe even both. I don't know, that's weird. That's a weird thought. Have both physical and digital agent. A physical is like a robot that does your dishes and other things and helps you with different things, and also can perceive information and help you make a decision in any way. So yeah,
isn't that technology making things more efficient for us and letting us be the final decision maker? I love the concept of AI agents. I like what you describe. The only thing I think about is what happens does that limit us in some way of only sticking to the things that we know? Because we do know that sometimes we want to be exposed to different things, but maybe that's what the real world is for. Maybe it's getting together with friends and having deep conversations like you and I like to have.
Well, still allow that to happen, only filter out the things that are obviously harmful for you. For example, I think starting there maybe is a good starting point, and then maybe putting more limits down the line, whatever you figure out. Around your newsletter and the how do you call it, like the 10 future predictions, or what's
the 10 trends that I've identified for the future of networking. So what's coming in AI around a human connection for professional.
Beautiful. Why don't you share some?
So there's 3 categories within there. There's foundational, meaning what tools are out there, just kind of lay of the land. 10 trends for the future of networking. So within there, I've broken it down into 3 categories. The first one is foundational. What's happening? What AI tools are out there? What's coming? And then the second one is behavioral. How is it going to change our behavior? And then the third is human-centric. So what can we do to prepare, and what can we retain as our unique humanness in that? So I'm releasing them one by one in my newsletter. Definitely check it out.
Would you mind sharing if this is some that more recent, something more favorite of yours?
I've only released the first 2 right now, but the first one is AI enhanced networking. And so I talk about how there's AI tools already out there that can supercharge your networking. And by not using them, you run the risk of falling behind. And so not to make people feel scared or worried, but over the next few years, people are going to be using these AI enhanced networking tools to do all the wow factor things that we do now in networking, like, oh, you remembered my kid's name, or, oh, we go for coffee again and you remembered my coffee order.
Yes.
Or I mentioned that I was going to be on your podcast, and a week later you text me saying, or someone else texts me saying, how was that podcast? Yes. And so those are just a few examples, just reminding you. But I mean, there's also AI networking tools that will match us without me even having to go out and do any work in terms of going to an event or asking for recommendations. So I talk about how it's coming. It's here, coming, and the importance of at least trying a few of these AI networking tools. The second one is agents, avatars, and automation. So I explain the difference in those, and I actually do some demos in there, and I did some testing, and so that one actually comes out soon. And then there's 8 more.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll definitely subscribe, and would love to keep
I'll
up.
highlight this conversation in that, in the next one. So in the third one, the third trend.
Okay, amazing. Maybe in the closing, so for someone who is looking to up-level their networking game, or just a game of human connection, and maybe they're a little bit more on the introvert side, what is some advice that you would give them where to start and how to approach this whole human connection networking thing? Yeah.
Not to be cheesy, and I promise you it's very valuable, but definitely look at my newsletter archive, because I've published so many articles giving all my tips away. I just really download all of it. So definitely check out my Future of Networking newsletter archive. But if you are introvert, I would say, first and foremost, I love you. I'm an introvert extrovert. I know it sounds crazy, but the way I recharge is by quiet time. So I might go to a lot of these events, or I'm speaking or engaging, but I need my quiet time. And so I understand what it's like to have different versions of you. And there's times where I'm supposed to go to an event and I'm like, oh gosh, I don't want to go to that. You know, you feel that feeling of like, oh, what is it going to feel like? I just can't wait to be home in my pajamas. So I would say, don't feel pressured to do the traditional networking formats that you think exist, like going to a room with 100 people and forcing yourself to talk to them. A recommendation I give for introverts is to think of something that brings you joy, something you have expertise on, or something, whether it's a hobby or a professional expertise, and start a small community around it. And even community can be triggering to an introvert, thinking like, oh my gosh, I have to like be this curator and leader. What I mean is, find something that you love, and you can even start like a newsletter, or you can start a meetup. And the reason for starting it is that, one, you start off by having something of value that you give to others. You're bringing them together to talk about something that they also love, or you're giving value to them in your newsletter. And 2, it gives you something to stand upon. So when you're at an event, you're like, hi, I'm Kirill. I do podcast production and headshots and video production, but I also have this awesome newsletter that gives you tips of how you can kick off your first podcast yourself. And then that just attracts people to you. So that's something that I always say is, you don't have to meet 100 people, but if you can meet a few people by giving them value, and you basically bring them right to you in this way.
Beautiful. And in closing, would you mind describing the ideal case scenario future that you are excited about, and the one that you're moving towards? Any aspect of it. It could be on the personal level, on societal level, any level you want.
My belief for the future is that AI is going to enlighten us in a way. It's going to release some of the load that we feel. I think that ideally our workload is lessened, I hope that we focus more on our health. And I think that will allow people to be more present and peaceful and fulfilled. I'm a parent in a modern working world, and sometimes it's insane how hard it is to juggle being a parent, owning your own business, being a good family member, being a great wife, having friends, having a hobby, and juggling it all.
Yeah.
It's really dangerously
Demanding. Yeah.
demanding.
Yeah.
And stress can really hurt people. And I think that we are just worked to the bone, and our priorities have been changed because of modern, I think, demands. And so I really hope that AI will lessen that load, and allow us to be more enlightened, which means we're focusing on health and spirituality, and ultimately, as woo as this sounds, I do think love is the universal language. And once we have, but you can't lean into that when you are constantly in stressed mode.
Yes.
And my heart goes out to anybody who is, feeling just maxed out. So I hope I believe AI will do that for us. And then we can all just be, holding hands on the beach, wearing white while AI runs our world.
I love that. I would love that. Yeah. Sign me up. Yeah.
Yeah, me too, right?
Yeah.
I think they do that in Brazil. They're basically...
Without AI, probably too. Yeah. Maybe you don't need AI for.
They don't need AI. They already have it.
Yeah, but the world that we live in, there is you can't just undo completely the whole history of the development. You have to we have things that we need to carry over into the future, and so AI is relevant because it will take care of a lot of that complexity that has been built over the years, and so that we can maybe go back to what it actually meant to be human, which is, being more connected with ourselves, with others, nature, be present, and shine your light, be more enlightened,
That's beautifully said.
Yeah.
I hope for that.
I hope that too. Yeah. Thank you, Nicole. This has been a great conversation. Thank you, listeners, for staying all the way till the end. And I hope so. I hope at least a few of you are. And I'll see you on the next one.